Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today, I have a very special episode. So I am the guest again this week. This is a replay of a episode I did about a month or so ago with Allison Povone. So basically, in this episode, I was a guest on Allison Pavone's show, and we had an awesome conversation around everything from my personal story, going from a skinny kid to a health first coach, why calorie deficits are a tool, not a lifestyle, and how chronic dieting can negatively impact your metabolism, hormones, and performance, how to identify if you're under eating and what a reverse diet may look like, the relationship between muscle mass, energy intake, and body recomp goals, especially for people who are a little bit on the leaner side, how to build muscle effectively, the role of sleep and circadian health in all of this. We touch on keto and carnivore and how to adjust your food choices when you're adding calories. And then we wrap up really with practical strategies for women in their 40s and 50s who want to build muscle, lose fat, and feel strong. And I do dive into Allison's unique situation as well, too, where she is somebody who is in that low calorie state there. So we touch on that throughout. I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, if you want to learn more about a body recomp, what it is, how to do that, my free checklist is in the show notes. Again, I dive into 10 things you need, what body recomp is, the two types of body recomp, why it's important to focus on body composition. So make sure you go and check that out. And that's it for this. Go enjoy the episode, and I'll chat with you guys soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my show, and I am your host. I am a holistic health and wellness coach, and this podcast is designed to educate and empower and inspire you all to achieve your health and wellness goals. My goal is to provide you with the best content and conversations from leaders in the health industry. And today I have Jeff Hain, who is an online coach, founder of JH Health and Fitness, where he helps busy professionals over the age of 30, yes, because we all need help for some reason at that age, to improve body composition, performance, and long-term health. Jeff blends his evidence-based training and nutrition to focus on real-life balance so clients can build muscle and basically lose fat and feel amazing without sacrificing their lifestyle. He also has the Mind Muscle Connection podcast, where he breaks down fitness and physiology in a way that actually makes sense. Jeff has his master's degree in human performance and functional nutrition and metabolism specialist, certified strength and conditioning specialist. So I want to welcome Jeff here to my show, as we're going to discuss amazing things today about women's health, hormones, body fat, reverse dieting, a whole bunch of stuff. Jeff, welcome to my show. I appreciate you being here.
We're going to chat about all the good stuff. And we're going to chat again because we already recorded this, but there was some errors with the recording, so we're redoing it. But as we said off air, hopefully we're going to get straight to the point with stuff, and it's going to be better than the first one.
Yeah, see, it all happens for a reason, but we get to speak again, so that's good.
Hey, real quick, too, thanks for having me. It was fun to do our kind of off-air chat, and now it's going to be fun to do the recorded one again. And again, really appreciate you asking me to come on to the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So for our listeners here, I just want you to tell me, I know we went over this, but how long you've been a coach and why you became a coach.
It'll be funny to hear how many times we say, as I said last time, even if there's not actually going to be the last time.
Yeah.
How I became a coach. So I was a short, skinny kid growing up, and I played sports. And so like that always was something I noticed, and I could just tell, right? Like everyone was a little bit bigger than I was. Some people picked on me a little bit for my height, but it was always something I was self-conscious about, right? But
Yeah.
I knew that because I played sports, we did work out and things like that. So I knew that was a way I could control at least some part of that, right? I can't get taller, but I could definitely build up my body a bit more. So I started working out, playing sports throughout like grade school, high school, stuff like that. But my dad had these like sets of weights at home, and I remember I would just do curls and like push-ups, and that essentially is how I got into it. Push-ups, curls, things like that. But as I played sports, we had to get into working out a little bit more. And during high school, I really was not a fan of working out, but I just did it because I had to. And I remember my buddy, we had a physical education class basically, and we would do like weights and stuff. And I remember during that, we would literally do curls and squats. Those were like the two main things that we did. But coming out of high school, I didn't play sports anymore. And I knew that I wanted to continue to work out though. I knew that was, again, something that was important to me. And so I continued to work out, got a gym membership. I could only work out with my buddies at the time. Like I had to have somebody, but eventually I branched out onto my own and built some muscle and felt good. And so that was my background getting into it. But really I saw other people that were muscular, and I wanted to have a look like that. I wanted to look muscular, build that physique. And yeah, and that's how I got into it. That's how I got into working out. As far as coaching goes, I was a gym manager And I would sign people up. And so we didn't do any personal training or anything. As a gym manager, you overran the gym, signed people up, made sure it was clean and anything like that. And so I would have these great conversations with people to sign them up, and then I would never see them again. It's disheartening to see that, to have these people be super excited to get started and then never actually start. And over time, I was like, man, I really enjoy the whole aspect of physiology and just how to work out, like training splits, exercises, nutrition, like all that stuff interests me. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and be a personal trainer. So I quit my full-time job of being a gym manager. I had a very steady income to go to being a personal trainer where I only was making money with the amount of clients I had. So there was this like weird transition period where I wasn't really making too much money, right? Because you're trying to build your business. So I started as in-person trainer, and I just loved it right off the bat. I would be lying to you if I said throughout that entire time I was super confident this is what I was going to do, because there were some days where, man, I passed up this full-time income to not be making anything. So that was like really hard. That was a very hard transition during that time. But luckily I had some savings built up and worked out, or lived at home with my parents, so they were able to help me a little bit with that. And this was like in my late 20s, by the way, with this. And so started training people, loved it, fell in love with it, and really fell in love with the continuing education side of things. And so that really what kind of led me down this path of diving into that more. And again, we mentioned like human physiology, muscle building, and stuff like those are things that I just really love learning about, everything really about the human body. And then I slowly transitioned to online and just working with people online. And the reason I did that is because I was really able to, one, take care of things outside of the gym, which I think is super important, but also be able to just meet with people all over the world versus just being stuck with people just around you. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it. And luckily, I've never looked back, and I love doing it. And I just love continuing to learn more. That's really what fires me up the most, I feel like. But obviously working with people as well, too, is super important.
Yeah, that's awesome. The gym thing is funny because I used to own a gym, Burn Boot Camp, and same thing. People would come in all excited, and then you wouldn't see them anymore. And I would just be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Being a health coach, that's the thing that I help people change, is I shift their mindset to love to exercise and love to take care of the body. And when it comes to the gym, a lot of people would embrace it and stay. But then there was those people that just were like, it's Christmas time or it's the summer. And it's so crazy. It's like, it's not a season. It should be your lifestyle. That's why I love the coaching aspect and coaching people online, because when you coach people and you reach out, then they really start to embrace lifestyle instead of yo-yo dieting kind of thing. So tell me a little bit about your area of expertise and really truly how you help people.
Yeah. So I love, as we've talked about, like the body composition side of things, right? And again, most people, when they get into fitness, like it's probably from a vanity perspective, and that's okay. I think that's great, right? That's probably how most people got into it. But as you talked about, it's like over time, I feel like that shifts a little bit to more like health, and again, it just makes you feel good, right? So I think it shifts to that. So the body composition side of things is near and dear to me, and that's the main thing that I work on there, right? So again, I like to take it from a body composition standpoint, right? We're looking at what your weight is made up of. Yes, we're going to pay attention to your weight, but we're really focused on your body composition. And then also I try to take it through a lens of like performance being performance in the gym, but performance out of the gym. Like I feel like if those things are in line, like if you're having good training, you're feeling good in your training, and we do things that set that up, you're going to see those body composition changes. And then also outside of the gym, and outside of the gym being like, whether that's your work, being a better parent, spouse, whatever it may be, right? Like we're also making whatever we're doing from a body comp perspective, performance perspective, you're able to perform better outside of the gym, whatever that looks like. Or maybe you're someone who likes to play in a league, pickleball. I like to play hockey once a week, whatever that is. We're also making sure that, hey, you not only perform well, but also reduce your risk of injuries and that as well too. And then lastly, we're looking at, in the process, we want to work on your overall health. I want you to feel good in that process too. We don't ever want it to be something that's like, oh man, this freaking sucks. I feel terrible. We want you to feel good in that process too. And so I think that those are the three things that I try to do. And I specifically like to work with people over 30, partly because I'm over 30. And you mentioned it when you were introducing me. It just seems once we hit that point, that's when people really start to need help more. And I think it really just comes down to when we're in our 30s and beyond, like you just have a lot more going on overall than you did in your 20s. And we don't ever want to use age as an excuse. As we age, like our body is a little less resilient. So it just has changed a little bit. And it's not anything like drastic, like it's going to hold you back, but we just need to be smarter with what we do there. So those are the type of people I work with, and I try to combine all those things. And I find that focusing on those things is going to lead to the body composition changes, whereas a lot of people just focus on the body comp changes, and that's where they can get themselves stuck there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I feel like I'm 50, so I feel like too, women like 45 to 50, That's when a lot of shifts change with hormones. And then also your parents are growing older and you're taking care of them, or there's just so many seasons of life that change at that age. So people think they can eat and do what they did when they were 25, and we can't.
And I like to think of things as just like the overall stress load on the body. And when we're in our 20s, it's like the biggest stress you have, I feel like, is like school maybe, or you got broken up with by your boyfriend or girlfriend in like 2 years, right? Those are like the worst things that you usually deal with. Now, again, everyone's a little bit different, right? Some people are going to have way worse things that go on. But generally speaking, that's it. And then you get in your 30s, like you said, and it's like now you have kids, you have a full-time job, and our body, not only, again, is it a little less resilient, but now we have a lot of other stressors. And so we, again, just need to be smart with what we do and figure out how to kind of balance that out. And I just find that's where, again, if you just go to what you used to do, you might find yourself spinning your wheels there. And so it's just being smarter and applying things more to your unique situation and like all the stuff you have going on in your life at the moment.
Exactly. Okay, so what I want to know is, I know we had spoke about this last time, but I kind of want to dive into calorie deficit, how it can affect your metabolism, because I feel like there's a lot of women that struggle with this when they hit perimenopause and they go up. And I'm sure you have many clients that come to you with this, because I know when I see your posts, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. When women chronically diet, especially when they hit perimenopause, we can't go outside the box. It's crazy because our hormones just are plummeting down. And people have to understand that hormone replacement therapy is obviously something that helps, but it's not a fixer. You still have to apply the lifestyle. You're not going to go on estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and lose weight automatically. It doesn't work like that. Obviously, it's going to help your body and aid your body to get back to balance, but you have to fix the things like your cortisol, which is your biggest hormone, and your adrenals. And if you're not eating enough, they're going to suffer, and then your body's going to be in that inflammation mode and you're not going to lose weight, which is what I deal with a lot because I don't eat a lot of calories. So tell me how being in that kind of hurts, and how do you get someone out of that so that way they can gain their body fat loss and keep their muscle and kind of change body composition?
Yeah. So the first kind of question we want to hit at is what happens when you're chronically in a deficit, right? Is that kind of the main thing? Yeah. So real quick, I'm just going to give an overview because when we talked last time, I said this at the end and I want to get this out now because I think that this can help guide everything that we ask later on. So when we look at a calorie deficit, what is a calorie deficit? So first I want to go in, it's simply put, it's calories in, calories out. But it's a little bit more dynamic than that. And I think that gets lost in social media, right? When we think simplistically about it, that's what it is. So calories in, very simple. It's just the amount of calories you bring in. Now, that can get a little confusing depending on if you're absorbing everything, your gut health, like that's going to impact it a little bit. But simply put, it's just the amount of calories you bring in. Now, calories out, that's the amount of calories you burn throughout a day. That's going to be made up of 4 distinct things. And it's going to be your basal metabolic rate, right? Your BMR. That's basically the amount of energy you're expending just for basic bodily functions. Like you lay down and laid all day, you'd still burn that amount of calories, right? It's going to be based on genetics in terms of how many calories you actually burn. Your body size is going to be important there. Your body composition is going to have a little bit of an impact there as well too. Those are the main things that are going to impact that. Then you have your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, aka your NEAT, and that's just like subconscious movements throughout the day. So me like fidgeting, blinking, talking, etc. That's the calories that you'll burn through that. That's going to be variable again in terms of what that is, right? You have someone who's just very like stoic and they're like, they just sit there, they don't move much, versus someone like me that's like kind of fidgety and likes to move around. That person's probably going to have a little bit of a higher NEAT there. Then we have thermic effective food, which is just the amount of energy you expend absorbing and digesting food. So people don't realize that, but you are going to expend some calories just by eating food. Protein's going to have the highest thermic effective food, right? So you're going to burn the most energy with protein, which you can utilize. You can use that if we maybe get into that later at some point. And then lastly, you have exercise activity. Now, it's going to be similar to non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's okay, is walking NEAT? Is it not? I don't think it really necessarily matters. The main thing that I'm trying to get at is you burn calories more than just like exercise, right? It's like there's things that go into that. And so that's your total daily energy expenditure there. So to be in a calorie deficit, you need to consume less calories than you expend. And so that would be a calorie deficit there. When you do, that's going to send the signal to your body, hey, we need to break down stored energy on our body, whether that's muscle, body fat, whatever it is, we need to break that down to use towards energy, right? And so over time, if you do that and you do things right, you should be losing body fat. And so for some people, they need to do that. There's a period of time where you need to do that. And I think over time, like if you do it every once in a while, even if you're a little bit leaner, like I still think from an overall health perspective, it's probably a good thing to dip into a deficit at times. Where you can get into trouble is if you do it for extended periods of time, okay? That's where you'll start to see some potential things happen there. So again, if you're overweight, like to get down to a healthy body fat, like you're gonna need to get into a deficit. So we do wanna get there. If you're on the leaner side, you can get there, but we have to be a little bit more strategic with it, and we need to get away from that. So when we're always there in this energy deficit, what's going to happen is it's going to send the signal to your body, hey, we need energy somewhere. Now, I always like to think of this from an evolutionary standpoint. Like in today's modern environment, we're always going to have food around, so we don't really have to worry about not getting enough food. Whereas you go back to 100, 200, 500, thousands of years ago, we evolved with this, hey, we don't know when we're going to get food. Food was a lot harder to come by, and you had to move a lot more to get food. So our bodies developed this mechanism to adapt to energy deficits, understanding that, hey, we may not get food for a while. So there's going to be some things that happen in that process. And whenever I explain it that way, it makes a little bit more sense, right?
Yeah.
So thousands of years ago, this was a survival mechanism, right? But as I mentioned earlier, in today's modern environment, not so great, especially with a lot of people wanting to lose weight. And so what happens when you do this is your body starts to downregulate things that it deems not necessary, okay? Especially as the deficit gets larger and the leaner and leaner you get within. So things like thyroid's going to slow down, which thyroid really is going to control everything from an energy expenditure standpoint. So once that goes down, everything just slows down a little bit. You'll also find that things like meat, as I mentioned earlier, that's going to go down a little bit, right? So now we're potentially expending a little less energy there. Then we have digestion's going to slow down a little bit if we're there chronically. You're not going to be in the greatest position to add muscle, which depending on where you're at there, that could become problematic later on. To do things right, you should be good there. And then obviously we're bringing in less food. And so now our thermic effect of food goes down a little bit. And this is just going to lead to this vicious cycle of, so another thing that's going to happen is your body's, okay, hey, we're not getting enough energy. We don't necessarily want to reproduce right now. If you're not bringing in enough food, we're not going to reproduce. So this is where you start to see like women have menstrual cycle irregularities. Hormone balance gets out of whack. For men, they'll see testosterone go down, right? So these are all things that happen when you're chronically in a deficit. And all this is going to do is just put another stressor on the body. And when those things are not working optimally, everything else just breaks down from there. So that's what happens for extended periods of time. And again, to go back to the body comp side of things, you can build some muscle in a deficit, but the longer we do that, like it's going to get worse and worse over time, essentially. And it's going to be harder to do that. Your body's just going to be like, okay, hey, we don't want to adapt. We just need to survive energy deficits.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Now, do they have apps where you can find out? Honestly, I have the Hume scale. I have a Hume scale, the one that measures body fat and stuff. But how would someone find out like exactly what they burn on a daily basis? Just obviously.
Most of those things that you're going to find that we can get from like a general public standpoint is just going to give you an estimate of.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that estimate accurate?
It can get you in the ballpark, but
you're
going to have to make some adjustments, right? So it gets you in the ballpark, and then from there, you're just going to have to adjust based on like where your body weight's trending, right? That's going to be the main thing that you are going to need to do there. So it gives you an idea. Somebody may ask that. That's a good question of, okay, so you talked about total daily energy expenditure. Again, that was kind of your question, like, where's mine at? How do I know where mine's at? It's going to be very dependent, right? You can get in the ballpark. You can use calculators. You can use calculations to get you in the ballpark. But it's just going to get you in the ballpark. You have to make adjustments over time because, again, genetics are going to play a big role in this. Your overall metabolic health is going to play a big role in where that's at. And this comes back to what you just talked about with being in a deficit for a while. Your body will adapt to whatever calorie amount you're bringing in, right? So that's the interesting thing with calories in, calories out is not only is there multiple things of it, but it's adaptive to whatever energy balance you're in. So you, as we talked about, will see things like NEAT, thermic effect of food go down. So that's going to lower how many calories you're burning in a day, right? So you're here, now you have a smaller deficit. When people start to slow down, then they decrease food a little bit. Again, the body's smart and it's going to be like, now it's going to continue to drop things down to keep managing with it, right? And so now this is where you run into issues where you're not getting in enough micronutrients, your body's super stressed, and you just kind of get caught in this basically survival mode is what I'm talking about there. So crazy thing with the total daily energy expenditure and how many calories you burn is it's very dependent on the person, and the current energy balance you're in is going to impact that as well too. And so again, that's where when people are in a chronic, like they eat low calories, I always tell them that's your artificial maintenance calorie range now because you dropped it down. Now, the cool thing with this is if you do this for a while, your metabolism is not ruined. It's adaptive. So you can adapt it back up, but we have to look at the inputs to get it back up. I remember we talked about this last time. That's where a lot of people get themselves stuck in the state. So they have this artificially low maintenance calories. And that's because, again, their body's just trying to, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's just being thrifty with its metabolism, essentially, for a survival standpoint, which again, we know that in today's modern environment, that's not a concern, but it doesn't know
Right.
that it thinks it's living thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it's so crazy how the body just knows what to do. But so, for instance, I think my basal metabolic rate is like 1158. So that would be like the 1158 or whatever. But then I burn anywhere between 300 and 350, depending on what I do for workout. How does that work?
Yeah, so I won't even look at that for clients. The only
Okay.
thing I'll do is like, I'm going to get your estimated maintenance, and then I'm adjusting it based on where things are going. I'm usually going to, depending on where the person's at, my estimated number is going to be just a little bit lower, just for the fact that people are not great at tracking, and so they tend to underreport calories. So
Okay.
I'm just going to underestimate that a little bit. But what I'm doing there is, okay, so we have your estimated maintenance calories. Now you're going to start tracking. We're going to see where things are trending, right? We're going to look at your body weight here. So if I give you your estimated maintenance calories, and over weeks, not just one day, not one day you're 156 and then the next day you're 157, okay, you're not in a surplus, right? I'm not concerned about that. I want to look at least 3 weigh-ins per week under the same conditions. We want to take that average, and that average for the week, I want to see where that's trending over time. And that's going to tell me what your total daily energy expenditure is, right? So again, let's say I give you 2,400 and you're logging 2,200, and we see your weight staying around the same. It's one day it's 156, one day it's 158, then it's 157, but it's staying within this range over 3 to 4 weeks. Your maintenance calories then, right? Whatever that is, that's your maintenance calories. There's a lot of, again, we're relying on tracking, which I said is not great. I'm just looking at the trends in the data, and that's how I'm making my adjustment. So let's say they're eating 2,200, or let's say they're eating 2,400 calories from what they're logging, and we look at their scale weight over 3 to 5 weeks, the average, and it's trending down, they're in a deficit, right? Now, and then the other way, if over 3 to 5 weeks or whatever, it's slowly trending up, they're in a surplus, okay? So we just need to manipulate, okay, do we need to move a little bit more? Do we need to work on our caloric intake to get to whatever energy balance you want to go? Now, where it can get somewhat confusing is you may be, let's say you're seeing their scale weight staying around the same, or it's just like really slowly.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that person could potentially be in a deficit, but that's where now we have to look into other things, which we're already going to be looking at, are like measurements, how clothes are fitting, because some things could get masked in that if somebody comes in and they have a lot of room to build muscle, or whether that be they have low muscle, they have a lot of body fat, or they just haven't been doing, their methods haven't been great, and you get those dialed in, people can, like I talked about, simultaneously lose body fat and build muscle. Now, this is all on a sliding scale depending on where you're at, but sometimes that can happen, so you just have to make sure. To me, that's a great spot to be in, whereas a lot of people would see that and they're like, oh, I got to slash my calories because I want to see my weight trend down. So you do have to be careful a little bit, but generally speaking, I have found that to be the best way to figure out if you're in a deficit or not, or whatever energy balance you're in.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But like for a client like me, if I came to you and literally I could be 2 pounds up, 2 pounds down. This fluctuates all the time, but I'm 117 pounds. So I don't even know, like for me, it's not even much losing weight. It's losing body fat. You know what I mean? Like kind of just changing my body composition. Now I know the thing is I eat enough protein every day. I know that because my main food is protein. The problem is my carbs and my fats. So I'm always more fats than carbs. The only carbs I eat are like vegetables and fruit. I do berries. I do a kiwi just because of the health benefits and the micronutrients in it. They're amazing. That's really what my carbs are. And vegetables, once in a blue moon, I'll do like a piece of sourdough bread or half a sweet potato or something like that. Yeah. So for me, like if somebody like myself came to you, you'd probably have to work with me in terms of figuring out like more of a reverse diet or adding.
What I would do for you is, obviously, yes, like we're trying to figure out, okay, what's your ultimate goal? What do you want to do? And so again, it sounds like you just want to continue to improve your body composition. It sounds like body fat, but you also are happy with building some muscle as well too. And then I also would ask you, like, do you have any like performance type goals? Do you have any certain way that you want to feel? Like, are you not feeling great somewhere, right? Like energy levels, like food focus. Is there anything like that you also would want to improve? Like, I would be asking you those things. You can let me know, because then I could tailor this a little bit more to you, or I could go on to what I would do next. But
I just would so body composition for one, but I do want to obviously increase muscle mass.
Yeah.
So I know that's like a catch-22. Like I want to do that. As far as it comes with foods, I think last time I really don't feel tired. And I don't know if it's because I truly eat really well. And I will say there are times when I'm working out where I feel like, oh crap, I probably could have had more to eat the day before, because I feel like in my workout, like Today, for instance, yesterday I didn't eat much, but I don't know why I wasn't hungry. So I had breakfast and then for lunch, I had a protein shake. But with my protein shake, I call it my hormone protein shake. So it's like collagen, hemp seeds, chia seeds. I had my protein powder, had berries in it. I had my fiber, which was my PGX fiber, because I try to do at least 40 grams of fiber per day for my hormones, soluble, insoluble, and just in general for the gut. And my son had basketball at 5:30 and I was like, I'm not even hungry. Like I couldn't even eat dinner. That's what I eat yesterday. And today I went to the gym and I did heavy glutes and quads. So like I really did a lot of reps until failure. And I will say I was dying and I did a superset. So it was like 8 rounds.
So it sounds like, again, overall, you feel pretty good. There's nothing else that you'd like necessarily feel like you need to improve or anything like that. It's just, again, more so the body composition side.
I think the body composition. Yeah.
Okay. You were talking, I was looking away. I was trying to see if I could see your body composition, but I remember looking at it on your Instagram, and I mean, you're definitely leaner, right? So in your specific situation, based on what you told me, what I would want to do with you is we would essentially start off with a 4 to 8 week kind of phase where we're doing what I just said. Right? I'm giving you estimated maintenance calories. And then based on the fact that you want to build more muscle and where you're at currently, to me, it wouldn't make any sense for you to continue to try and drop body fat right at this moment, right? Like you're already on the leaner side. And if you're running into one, you told me you've been doing this for a while in terms of this caloric amount and you're just not, and you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
And again, like we talked about on the last conversation, you have a high energy output, like you like to move a lot and exercise and things like that. To me, it would not make any sense to put you into a deficit right off the bat. Like for you, I would want to reverse diet, right? Where we do build up we would go into a building phase, but it would be like not necessarily a, hey, you're going to gain a ton of body fat building phase. It's like, hey, we're going to build your body up. So then that way you can get here. And then now you're at this better place overall where your body's going to be more receptive to a little bit more fat loss, but you're also going to have the benefit of, we're really going to maximize your metabolism, but then also potentially add some lean body mass in that process, right? Because again, your body right now where you're at is probably just, we're doing a lot. We're not getting a ton of food in. So we need to it's not in the best position to where it wants to build muscle and optimize your metabolism is what I like to say there. So for you, we would do like a reverse diet where like I would have you start tracking, see where your weight trends. And then from there, we would just, hey, your weight's here. Let's maybe bump it up a couple hundred calories. Let's see what happens. Because again, so what happens in this situation? We do that. We bump it up a couple hundred. Maybe you see scale weight come up a pound or two, like the next day, the next couple days. I'm not concerned about that. Like anytime you add a little bit more food, like you're probably going to see your scale weight come up just a little bit. But it's not body fat. It's not going to happen that short. It's just maybe a little bit more sodium, maybe a little bit more food, glycogen's a little bit higher. And so that happens. And then we just see what a lot of times when I do that with people who are in your situation, they'll find that they actually, like some people will see their weight come up. Some people will see it stay the same, and some people actually see it come down a little bit because the body's, holy crap, all right, we're getting in plenty of food, and it takes stress off the body, and it just, best way I can describe it, just relaxes. And so you do see weight come off a little bit. But in a lot of situations, people will see their weight come up a pound or two, and in that situation, what happens when they see that, now they go back to dropping their calories because they're like, oh crap, I gained all this weight, I gained body fat. That's not the case, right? So we kind of have to stick with it. So what happens is, you see that maybe it stays the same, but maybe it just stabilizes a little bit, and it comes back down to where you were at. So we would go there, just see how you're feeling. Now you're like, oh crap, all right, I'm feeling a lot better in my training. I'm able to push my training a bit more. And then we would just keep bumping up until we get to this point to where it's, okay, you're at 14. How many calories did you say you're at typically?
So I keep my calories at 1,300.
13. Okay. So let's say we bump it up to 1,500. You do that. You see it come up a little bit. I'm like, hey, Allison, everything's okay. You're good. You're feeling better. All right. You stick to it for another week or two. And again, the average weight is about the same. Maybe it comes up a little bit. And then from there, again, now maybe you start to see it come back down after 2 to 3 weeks, right? So now I'm like, okay, hey, now we need to bump your calories back up a little bit, right? Maybe bump it up 200 calories again now at this point. Because again, just as your metabolism will adapt down, it also adapts up. So when it senses more energy, it will become a little less, I guess, greedy with the amount of energy. Now it's going to be like, okay, cool, we can expend a little bit more energy. We're getting more energy in. So again, you'll just see it do that, where now we bump you up to 1,700. Again, maybe it went down like half a pound, but now it comes back up just a little bit. But again, it stabilizes, and you're still, if you were at 117, maybe now you're still between 117 and 120. But you haven't gained any body fat in this process yet, right?
You said 120.
And again, we would have conversations around that, right? Like I would be filling in on, hey, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
So again, you do it. And then I've seen it to where some people can build up to 2,400. Again, could be 2,000, but whatever it is, at 120, I would say probably closer to 2-ish thousand, give or take a little bit. Now you're able to eat more calories. You feel better. Your body's in a better position to now add muscle. And if we did this right, like you didn't really gain it, you maybe you gain like a tiny amount of body fat, but it's not going to be anything.
To notice. Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't be anything that's like overly noticeable. So now you're there and now your body's in a better position. So now we have the option to, hey, we stay here for extended period of time, whatever that is, really put on some muscle, again, continue to really minimize fat gain, but we're continuing to build up your metabolism, right? Like your training's better, you feel better in your training, you feel better overall, you can have a little bit more flexibility with nutrition choices.
Right.
And then we have that option of, okay, you've been here for a while now. Do we want to maybe do a deficit?
How long would you keep somebody in that increase of a reverse diet? Like you just said, would keep you here. Is it 6, 8, 10 weeks? Is it, or based on the person?
Yeah, it is based on the person. Right? It's going to depend on where they're coming from, how they're feeling, what is their biofeedback, like how are they feeling? I guess when I say how they're feeling, do you feel like you're training better?
Yeah.
How are you feeling from a body composition?
Energy wise, yeah.
Energy wise. And then again, also just really taking into consideration like what you've done in the past. And I guess another thing I would say here is like when I'm asking biofeedback, are you still having a lot of food focus? Are you still feeling like always like super hungry? Are things like if you were someone who maybe had menstrual cycle irregularities, is that back on track?
Gotcha.
Are you just feeling better overall? Because if you're not feeling that way yet, that tells me we have a little bit more time here where we need to continue to kind of work on this. And have we really pushed our calories as high as we can, right? Because we may get to that point to where this could be a thing where you go from 1,500 to 1,700 to 1,900 fairly quickly, but then you may find that like you sit between 1,900 and 2,100 for 2 to 3 months or something. After 2 to 3 months at 1,900 to 2,100, you're still like, your weight's not really moving anyway. It's still staying around the same. Hey, we might have a little bit of wiggle room here to bump you up again.
Gotcha.
So you can do that. So long story short, it's very dependent on where you're coming from, what your overall goal is, what you're trying to do. But I think generally speaking, the longer that you've been in this state, it's not going to be a 3-week thing. It's probably going to be a little bit longer than that. Yeah. And again, the goal being you get there, you stay there. Now, next time, like you have more muscle now. And as we talked about, you're just overall metabolic health, your metabolism's in a much better spot. You are just feeling much better overall. Like now your fat loss phase, when we put you into a deficit, is going to be more effective and efficient. Like you're going to just see things, it's going to feel like you're going downhill versus like, maybe you could describe this as how you feel, but it's like you feel like you have to go uphill and like you're just going uphill to just drop like a little bit of weight and body fat.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I need to do that. Now, if I could just get my mind to process the weight thing, I'll be good.
That is the hardest part, get your mind around it, stepping away from the scale. And I think that's where definitely having somebody interpret the results to you and like just talk you through it can be super helpful. But also, again, people hear this and they think they're going to have to gain like 20 to 30 pounds. It's okay. That's not the case. Yeah. In this whole process, let's say it lasted 6 months, you probably would see anywhere. And again, remember, this is going to be anywhere. This is going to be dependent on how your body composition is, what's going on. Anywhere between 5 to 10 pounds, maybe higher. But I've had many clients, you hear that now and you're like, oh crap, that seems like a lot. But a lot of times clients will be like, I actually feel really good. Training's going really well. And I really don't feel any different from a body composition standpoint, especially if we nail. This is the key part of all this too, on the way up, especially if we nail our inputs, and inputs being our training. Are we sending the right signal with our training? Nutrition, you're able to eat more calories, but you have to be careful with being overly flexible with it. It's like you're still getting a good base, we're still getting in enough protein, but then also managing overall stress load on your body. That's going to be important. Good quality sleep, strategic supplementation, like these are all going to, and then obviously, when I talk stress load on the body, also like just again, stress management overall, because you mentioned specifically there where you're like, you would be getting in your head and mental side of things. So like that would obviously be another thing that you'd want to work on, because if you're constantly stressing about that, again, that's going to be another stressor on the body. And like we have to work through that. Also, again, like making sure your circadian rhythm's in a good place. Like you're not totally screwing things up there. So the inputs in this process are like those need to be nailed down. You can't just increase your calories and then be like all willy-nilly with everything else. And that's where I see most people go wrong when they try to do these phases is they're all in during fat loss and when they're restricting their calories, but the moment they get a little bit more calories to work with, they're just like, whatever. And that's truly where people mess this phase up. When I increase calories, I just gain a bunch of body fat. Is it the calories that are the issue, or is it your inputs that are?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true.
One more thing I want to say on this. Somebody in your specific situation too, you would not be in a good spot to, if we fat loss diet like right off the bat, one, again, it would be feeling like you're going uphill. So you'd be getting frustrated with that as well too. But then second, because of your current body composition and where you're at and what you've done like previously leading up to this, you would not be in a good spot to be someone who could add a little bit of muscle in a deficit, right? You would not be that person. You need to get to that point to where your calories are a bit higher for your body to feel best.
Yes.
Now, if you do things right, you eat enough protein, you train like you do, you shouldn't lose any muscle that you currently have. It's just going to be really hard to build any at that point.
Yeah, and I told you about those peptides. I tell you that they work wonders. That fit is amazing in the lean. It actually makes you hold on to muscle. But yeah, I could never go in a calorie deficit anyway, because what the hell would I eat 600 calories a day? And that would be really bad.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, right? It's like this comes that point of diminishing returns where it's okay now. Trying to drop my calories even more is just going to be a challenge in of itself.
Yeah, it's impossible. Then I'm in more of a problem.
You may be at that state that I talked about in this like artificially low maintenance calories, right? Where you're at like around 1300, and that's where your body has adapted at. And so like now we have to figure out, okay, how to work around that. In most situations, it's going to be, hey, let's try and increase your calories a little bit. But again, I would never be like, go eat 2,500 calories.
No. Yeah, you have to incrementally add. Yeah, for sure.
I will, if somebody does a fat loss phase, let's say we do this, we build you up, then we do a fat loss phase. What I would probably do for you on the second kind of go around of increasing your calories back up, I would probably be a bit more aggressive that time around. Like instead of going from like 1300, and this is all theoretical, going from like 1300 to 1500 and maybe okay, let's go to 1300 to 1700.
Right.
Like it might be a little bit more aggressive because we have a better idea of where your kind of like actual maintenance is at that point.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Good. I'm glad I have clarity on that because that's a rough one for me and I need help with that. Okay, so here's another question. I want to talk about sleep and basically really the importance of sleep and recovery, but also days of lifting. I know I get this question all the time, especially from women. I mostly tell them to definitely lift at least 4 days to see results. But I know everybody's different, but should we lift 5 days? Should we lift 6 days? Should we have a rest day? Should we have a rest day in between? How does that work? Because I don't teach people lifting. I teach people habit change. Totally different.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you said, and I'm sure you remember this from last time, like there is not going to be some magical like amount of times, right? We need to take everything into consideration. We need to take your goals, your recovery ability, just again, overall stress load on the body. So like somebody that has a ton of stress, you don't want to necessarily be like have the most amount of muscle ever. We may adjust how many days you train. That may look different than someone who's eating enough calories. Their overall stress load is fairly low. Like they have good recovery overall. You could probably push them a bit more. So I generally like to say at a minimum, probably 2 per week. I find that most of my clients end up being between like 3 and 4 days per week of resistance training, of weight training, where we're trying to specifically build muscle in that process. So 3 to 4 days, but as a minimum, say you have a ton going on and maybe you just aren't a huge fan of weight training and you don't necessarily want to have the most amount of muscle ever, you could go as low as 2 days if things are structured in the right way, okay? Right. Again, it really comes back to your inputs. Are we training effectively? Are we picking the right exercises? Are you training like hard enough in that? Like those end up being the most important things versus like how many days. But I think you're in that sweet spot if you're anywhere from like 2 to 5 days. So I think we talked about this last time, but for you specifically, if you enjoy weight training and everything like that, you're probably going to be closer to that 4 to 5 days per week because you enjoy that. And so it really just depends on all those factors, what time of life you're in, how much muscle you want to build. And then I also like to have most clients do some sort of conditioning. So it's like, we're also going to stack that on top of it as well too. But from a weight training perspective, you can really get away with a lot less than you think. I think the big thing that we want to avoid is this like ton of output with really low caloric intake. That's that range that you need to be careful with. So generally speaking, the lower your calories are, you're unfortunately like training volume is probably going to have to be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Overall there.
Yeah, that's me. Low caloric intake and a lot of exercise. Terrible. All right, that makes... What's that?
Touch on that. That's not inherently bad. It's just for extended periods of time, that's where you're going to potentially run into some issues, right? You could do really anything to the body in the short term, but long term is where you have to look at the sustainability. Something like falls, like, yes, somewhere along the lines like that will come back to bite you eventually. In the short term, you can really do anything for 3, 4, 5 weeks at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Was there anything specific you want to know about the resistance training sessions, like what that looks like or anything? I think you asked a few questions.
Yeah, sure. What does that look like? Because I know for a lot of people, especially women, they're like, what do I work out? What do I do? You know, for me, I'm at my age, I pretty much do reps until I fatigue and I usually go heavy. So if that looks like it's 9 reps with 40 pounds or whatever I'm lifting, then that's what it is. But how do you typically handle that? And how do they work it out? Like back and glutes, or like how do they rotate that?
So first, it's going to be dependent on how many days per week you train, right? If you're training twice a week, it's going to be some sort of full body routine, right? Just because that's, you're just not training enough. Yeah. 3 days, I like to do something, and you can structure this a little bit, but 3 days per week would be like upper, lower. On that lower day, we might do a little bit of upper, like some delts or something like that, right? It depends on exactly what you want to do. And then we'd have a full body day, right? So that's kind of how a 3-day routine would look like. 4 days is typically going to be like an upper, lower, again, with a little bit of upper on that lower day, like delts, stuff like that.
Right.
off day, and then you would do another like upper lower. And the cool thing with this is you can structure it based on what you want to see the most progress in, right? So if you're more lower body focused, then you do lower upper. If you're more upper body focused, you do more upper lower, upper lower.
Right.
Same thing with the 3-day split. If you're more lower body focused, do lower, then upper, then full, right? And then 5 days, that's where it gets a little like flexible in terms of what we want to do. Typically with 5 days, we're going to look at like that last day is probably going to be a little bit more focused on the things that you want to do, or it could be something like a upper, lower, off, upper, push, pull type situation with that, right? So that's where it can get a little bit more confusing there in terms of 5 days, but that's typically how I'll do it. And then again, 2 days per week would be full body, right? Like you just do full body there, and each day would have whatever you do in the beginning is going to be what you're going to prioritize, and so that's what we would stack up and prioritize within those exact workouts. But you hit on it, right? Like in terms of rep ranges, I say anywhere from 5 to 15 reps, 90 to 95% of the time, making sure that you're training pretty close to failure, right? Not necessarily just getting your heart rate up, but like actually taking the muscle to like close to failure, which I think is a skill, and that takes some time to develop. You're not going to get there, but also remember that if you're not really doing any resistance training leading up to it, like anything's you're gonna see results from, right? But as we get more advanced and we progress more, we want to spend a lot of our time closer to failure. Maybe you don't do that every single time, but you want to get close to it. You want things to be challenging. And then over time, you want to see things improve. As far as, and when I say improve, like you're adding weight, adding reps, improving your technique, whatever it is, like over time. And then as far as, sets, like how many per week, you could really do anywhere from 3 to 10 sets per week per muscle group. And that's going to be that sweet spot. In the research, once you get past that, like 10 sets per week per muscle group, that's where it's like you may see some more progress, but that's just more time, and the return on investment starts to go down a little bit. So 3 to 10 ends up being that sweet spot. And then I'm trying to hit each muscle group twice a week. So if you do quads, you just want to try and get it twice a week. And if you think back to how I explained the programming, it's like if you do 2 days a week, you're doing 2 full body days. So you're going to be hitting your quads. You do the 3 days, you're going to be hitting your quads twice. You're on that lower day and then on the full body day. So we're hitting each muscle group twice a week. And that's kind of my checklist that I go off of. And then obviously we'll adapt it to however many days you train, goals, etc. There.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Lighter weights, heavy weights, what do you think? Are light weights good for you to do? Because you hear so many things like, hey, if you could do 25 reps with light weights, say even shoulders or whatever, because obviously you're going to go lighter with them than normal. Is that something good to do? Or should we just use a heavy weight and try to get as many reps as we can?
Yep. Good question. So the biggest deciding factor is going to be how close you get to failure on that. In the research, they have shown that people have built muscle anywhere from 3 reps all the way up to 30. And it's not like you just get to 30 and it just drops off. Like it's probably going to you're going to get diminishing returns. So you could go further than that. But the one constant that is the most important is how close to failure you get. Okay. Now, here's where it gets tricky though. I said 6 to 15 reps or 5 to 15 reps, whatever.
Yeah.
And the reason I said that is because once you get past 15 reps, what ends up happening is, yes, you may feel like from a cardio standpoint or just, you do a lot of reps, like that's fatiguing, it's boring, like it's boring after a while, but you never take the target muscle. Like it's a lot harder to get close to muscular failure with these higher reps. Okay. And just a lot of time training. So it's almost a little less inefficient to do it that way. Okay. So that's why I say 6 to 15 reps, because it's going to be easier to get to muscular failure. And if you go say sub 10 reps, 8 to 10 reps, you can actually get away with keeping a rep or two in the tank, and you're going to see a little bit more progress. Whereas when you get to these higher reps, it's pretty important to get close to failure with those specifically, right? So you can start to see where you can incorporate those, but it's just a inefficient way to train for muscle growth. You're still going to get some sort of adaptation. Like I think we talked about this a lot last time, that like any sort of exercise is going to be beneficial. But again, if we're specifically looking at trying to build muscle, that's where we need to be with that. But again, it's contingent on, hey, you're training close to failure. But it gets harder as you get higher and higher with your reps. And people just are not as good at gauging muscular failure as they get higher with that.
Yeah, that is the truth for sure. They can't gauge it. Yeah, they don't even know they could get 1 or 2 more out, and they're just like, I'm done. Okay, so let's talk about sleep and recovery and how important it is. And what are things that you do with your clients, or things that, are important for that? With muscle recovery and just recovery in general.
Yeah, sleep's super important, right? It's going to impact everything. If you don't have that, like if you took somebody who was doing the same things, but one person's sleep was here, whatever that is, and some person's sleep was here, the person that's here with a better sleep, like everything's just going to be better. It's going to be easier. It's going to be better. Now, obviously genetics will play a role in that too, but generally speaking, that person, I'm going to put my bets on them seeing more change, better health and everything, better performance long term. So with sleep, yes, I think it's important to say, hey, get 6 to 8 hours a night. And that's usually what people base their sleep off of. Oh, hey, I got into bed at 11, I woke up at 7, I got 8 hours, I'm good. But we need to look further into that, right? We want to look at the quality of it. And so I like to look at sleep from a lens of what we're doing throughout the day and leading up to it. It's going to be more important than you just getting in bed for 8 hours, okay? And so with that, we're looking at your light environment. So light environment being, hey, are you getting outside as early as you can in the day to get some sunlight? Are you getting natural light throughout the day? Or like during the day, you would have like lights above your head on, like you're getting that type of light. And we want to make sure we get enough of that because that's going to help set your circadian rhythm for the day. And then at night, we're gradually going away from that where it's like less light overall. We're probably turning off our overhead lights. We just have really like dim lights. And we're trying to avoid our screen, like as much blue light as possible during that time. And that's going to help set you up for good quality sleep. So if you're someone who listens to this and you sit on your phone before bed,
bad.
It's going to impact you. Yeah,
It's so bad.
It's going to impact your ability to fall asleep, but also get good, deep quality sleep as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the one thing we're looking at is your light environment, what that looks like. And then we're looking at sleep regularity and making sure that you're falling asleep somewhere around the same time each night. It doesn't have to be exactly at 12:58 a.m. We're looking at, hey, if you typically go to bed at 12, you probably want to give yourself an hour anchor plus or minus. And obviously, the tighter we can get that, the better. But hey, we all have lives and stuff's going to be, it's going to get messed up. Yeah. And then you're generally waking up around the same time each day.
Yes.
There. So again, the biggest thing you could see there would be like during the week, you're here. And then on the weekends, you're a little bit off. And when that happens, you may find that you're just less, first, your sleep quality is not as good. And that's going to lead to, hey, you're a little bit hungrier. You have less energy. And when you don't get as good sleep, you're now less likely to make good decisions. You're less likely to exercise. So all these things just start to pile
it's like a snowball. Yeah. It's like a snowball effect. Yep. That's one thing with my clients. I'm like, sleep is just as important as your nutrition, if not more important. To do that, it's super important.
The last thing we're looking at is you're like how much like stress you have on the body overall, right? Like your sympathetic versus parasympathetic activity. When we look at that, sympathetic being fight or flight, parasympathetic being rest and digest. You're looking at that from an overall standpoint, but we're also looking at it leading up to sleep as well too. So overall, the more stress you have on your body overall, the less quality sleep you're going to get. I'm sure anybody who's been like super stressed can relate that during that time you don't get as good of sleep. But then we're also looking at that system leading up to sleep. And so what I mean by that is we want to try to get in that rest and digest before bed. So we're looking at, hey, you're at least getting a 30 minutes to an hour kind of bedtime routine to bring your heart rate down and to just get in that rest and digest.
Yeah.
But we're also looking at stimulants as well too. So making sure that you're not having coffee too late in the day. Alcohol too, right? It's a sedative. It will make you feel tired, but your sleep quality.
But then you wake up.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Sleep quality is going to suck. So we're looking at that too and making sure that's in line. So again, this is don't doom scroll right before bed. Don't do something super engaging right before bed. Another one's nutrition around sleep as well too, right? You don't want to have a super heavy, highly processed type meal right before bed either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to impact your sleep as well too. And this is where people that say, oh, meal timing's not really important. It's just calories in, calories out. That's where I think maybe it's a reductionist view because it will impact things over time. Our bodies are not as good at utilizing the food we give it at night. Exactly. Now we're looking at if you eat too late as well too, it's going to impact your sleep. And that could impact your gut health as well too, because that's when a lot of people experience like acid reflux and things like that when they eat these meals. So I just say we just want to be strategic with nutrition around sleep. Really try to avoid, don't eat a whole pizza right before bed. That's going to be a recipe for terrible sleep. If you're going to eat before sleep, maybe it's like a higher protein type meal. We just want to make educated choices around sleep there. And again, remember, if you do it one time, it's not the end of the world. It's just what you do most of the time as well too. So that's what I'm looking at with sleep. And I want to make sure all that's lined up. And most people, when we come back to what I started with, I sleep 6 to 8 hours, I'm good. And then I dive into this and I'm like, man, we have a lot of low-hanging fruit here to improve your. One other thing to look at, and I don't think I mentioned this last time, some people can experience, especially as women get into menopause, a lot of guys in general, and again, if you are a little bit more overweight, is sleep apnea. That's a huge thing. And so if you're doing all these things and that's not in a good spot, like definitely look at that. Look into that. See if you can get a sleep test. Ask somebody if you have a partner or something. Ask if you snore a lot. And that could be something to potentially look into that a lot of people overlook.
Yes. It's so dangerous, sleep apnea too. My gosh. Yeah. Yeah, it is a really bad thing.
The thing is the CPAPs are like a lot easier. They're not like, I think when people hear CPAPs, they think it's this like massive machine, but I think it's just like very like, it's a lot more accessible. And
I think so. Yeah. It's a little thing that goes over their nose or something. Yeah. Yeah, so crazy. All right, let me ask you this, because this is a myth, I think, and I don't really know the truth, but Does muscle weigh more than fat?
Yeah, so a pound of muscle is going to be a pound, like the same as a pound, like a pound's a pound. From my understanding, muscle is just going to be a little bit more dense.
Yeah.
It's like going to be a little bit smaller there. So that's my most educated guess at that is, to me, a pound is just, hey, it's kind of like the concept of food volume, right? It's just like one thing may have more calories for the amount of grams, but does that kind of make sense? So it's like per 1 gram, one may have more calories than another. Take like a piece of broccoli versus a piece of an Oreo.
Oh, of course.
So like to me, that's the same concept there.
Yeah.
Like a gram is just what is that gram made up of? This goes back to what we talked about initially. You could be 117. That's awesome. I'm only going to use scale weight to see what energy balance you're in. Outside of that, 117 means nothing to me because that does not tell me what your 117 is made up of. So if you go up to 120, what is that? Is that just water? Is that actual fat mass?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen overnight. So that's the same thing there as well too.
Yeah.
That ties into body composition.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's just the number on the scale. It's hard to, yeah, it's so hard. I know that 120 pounds isn't a lot of weight, but for me, like I have this thing that I want to stay in like the 117, 150. I even want to go down to 113 pounds, which is probably not good.
I mean, you could again, let's say we build you up to 125 and then you go down to 113. That may look a lot different and that may be doable for you. But everyone's going to reach that point where a certain body weight, and this is why muscle is important because you don't really know where you're going to end up and what your body fat percentage is going to be like, but everyone's going to end up at that point where is the juice worth the squeeze of getting leaner? Because as we get leaner, our bodies, to go back to the concept of energy on the body, when you're leaner, you don't have as much energy on your body. And so we're going to get to this point to where everyone's going to run into that issue of, do I want to continue to get leaner? Do I want to continue to make the sacrifices to get leaner? And from an overall health standpoint, does that make sense? And a lot of times people find that's a little bit higher than there.
It's not even like I'm dissatisfied with my body composition in the sense that I'm like, I hate my body right now. I guess it's more of a challenging thing for me, a mind thing. Yeah, I just want to see what I can get to. But I know it's not about being skinny. It's about being stronger. And that's what I teach my clients, especially as you age. I don't want to be that frail little thing. I want to have muscle on me. And that's why I lift heavy. And all these women say to me, how do you lift heavy? I'm afraid I'm going to look like Hulk Hogan. I'm like, you're not going to look like Hulk Hogan. Like heavy weight, can't even get close to that.
In that situation, that's another thing we need to factor in, right? Let's say you got down to 113 and you feel lean. It's okay. Is it now worth it for you to continue to eat in this amount, knowing that, hey, as you get into your 50s and beyond, especially from a female perspective, you need to provide enough nutrients from the bone health perspective as well. Right. So you need to just weigh those things. And so that's why with women clients, specifically over 40 to 50, like I really try to avoid being in a deficit as often. Really try to be in a deficit as little as possible for that reason.
Yeah, because hormones totally need the support. And that brings me to this question, which is funny because people will always tell me like, how do you feel? Because I know how I feel about fad diets or the carnivore or the paleo or the keto. And people will say to me, I know people will say to me, why don't you just do a carnivore diet? And I'm like, because I'm 50 and because my hormones need fiber and need support of carbohydrates. That's why I don't do a carnivore diet. And for me, it's just not supportive. So how do you feel about that when people ask you like, hey, Jeff, can I do a carnivore diet?
Yeah. I like to break it down just like you said, right? Where it's okay, why do you want to do it? What's the rationale for it? Is it because you saw somebody do it and that's why you want to try it? Let's break that down, right? So a good example is I saw a Facebook post, AJ Brown, he's a wide receiver in the NFL, okay? And he showed what he ate in the off season, and it was the carnivore diet essentially. And I'm just like, okay, I just wanted to break this down so people could understand that, hey, carnivore diet could be something that we utilize as a way to decrease body fat because it's going to get you to eat a little amount you're going to consume less calories because it's so high protein. But as you mentioned, it's going to come with some risks. It's not like there's no fruit or veggie in it when it's like we need those micronutrients, we need some fiber. AJ Brown is a NFL wide receiver. He trains a ton. So his performance is not going to be as good as it can be if he does that year round. You could adopt a carnivore style diet. I think the principles are there. It's like high protein. I think that's great. You don't have to just eat animal meat, but I think there's some benefit of consuming some animal meat. So I think there's good principles there, and there's good principles to every diet, like fad diet. Do we absolutely have to eat that way? Most of the time, it's like, no, you can make it your own. So it would depend, but I never have been like, yeah, go do a carnivore diet. It's usually, okay, let's do a carnivore style diet, but let's include these things that I think are important. But also, again, like making sure that the client feels good in that process. I've heard a lot of people that eat like a carnivore style diet, their like gut health just goes down the drain.
Yes.
When it's okay, that's probably not going to be a good thing long term. So we need to look at that. Same thing with keto. I grew up with, keto's terrible. Like, why would you ever do keto? You just need to eat carbs. But to me, there's time and a place to be lower carb. It just, again, depends on what you're doing and where you're at.
Yeah.
And so I think things like that can work. But again, instead of like full on keto where we're just eating like super high fat and like moderate protein, can we do higher protein, moderate to high fat, and then we can keep carbs low, but we're still getting in some like fruit and veggie. And from a fat perspective, we're still like eating good quality fats, like your omega-3s versus just like bacon, and how a lot of people will typically end up doing a keto diet.
Yeah.
Bacon, I think like bacon, cheese, super fatty meats, like that's how I typically do it. So I think you can take a positive from every single fad diet.
Yeah.
But I just don't ever see the point of like strictly following that unless there is some sort of...
Unless there's a medical. Yeah. One of my clients have diabetes. I'm like, we're going to keep down to 50 carbs and you're going to do basically a high fat protein diet just because of their blood sugar.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, obviously, I think something like diabetes, you're obviously not trying to fix their diabetes as a coach, but they do have a serious medical condition. I'm not going to be the person you need to go see. I need to refer you out.
Oh, yeah. Mostly, honestly, I've had diabetic patients where they've come off their metformin because they've stopped eating, but they come to me and they're eating processed food. And
exactly.
I mean, their carbohydrates are like 300 grams a day. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you have diabetes. But they're not eating the good carbs, obviously.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. There's always, I'm sure that person probably could improve their sleep. They could probably exercise a bit.
Yeah, it's all those things. Oh, yeah.
We're going to make it better.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I think we pretty much went over everything. I think we went over a little bit more in this episode, which I'm super happy about. But where can people find you on Instagram? And I'm going to put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So there was one thing that I know we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Do you have time to chat on it real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about in the process of increasing your calories. I know one of the things you brought up last time was, hey, that seems like a lot of food. Like, how would I eat that amount of food?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a good conversation to have because you see somebody that hears this and they're like, I want to try and increase my calories. And they're going to try to eat the same way that they have been eating when they're eating 1,200 calories, right? Like super high food volume, good, healthy foods. But where you can run into a problem is, I've seen this a lot where I'm like, okay, let's increase your calories. And they're like, man, I just can't eat that much food. And I look at their food log and it's literally like cauliflower rice, ton of veggies, high protein, just like very satiating foods. And I'm like, that's why you need to start to add in a little bit more calorie dense type food. And I don't mean, again, just adding in pizza. I'm like, okay, maybe instead of eating a plain chicken breast, maybe we can throw in maybe some chicken thighs. Instead of cauliflower rice, maybe we switch to rice if you can handle it. Like, we're just making small choices. Like, it's almost the opposite of what you would tell somebody who's like over consuming calories. It's, hey, let's find 5 food volume foods. For that person, it's like, hey, let's try and add in a little bit high calorically dense type foods. Not maybe high, but at least moderately higher caloric type foods, because that's going to be easier for you to actually consume. Like, again, maybe you're adding in a little bit of peanut butter if that's something that you feel like you can't have. Things like that we're starting to add in, so then that way you can get those calories up, because you will run into that issue where if you try to eat the exact same and you just increase 300-400 calories, you may feel like you're not going to be able to do that because it's so satiating. And from a gut health perspective too, you may find that's going to wreak havoc on your gut.
And your digestive,
if you're eating super high food volume type food. So you need to walk that fine line there with that as well too.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's me. Like, I don't really think I can get another piece of protein in or anything like that. And I know for me, like, I need to get a carbohydrate or a fat in order to get those calories up, because I'm not going to add, like you said, unless I add the chicken because it's higher in fat, like the thighs or whatever, which is actually the really good meat. I actually like chicken thighs. They're really good in the air fryer. So that makes sense. So that's a good idea. So because a teaspoon of peanut butter is like 200 calories?
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane. That's why I don't eat it.
And that's why when people say that, hey, I'm eating like X amount of calories and things aren't really changing, I'm always like, it's so easy to overconsume calories in today's modern environment.
With all the processed food, there sure is.
Yeah, you can go out to eat, and if you can get a meal under 1,000 calories when you go out to eat, that's hard to do, right? So it's, man, it's so easy to consume calories now. And again, that mismatch that I was talking about of hundreds of years ago, right? Where it's like you had to expend a ton of energy to go get 500 calories, whereas now you don't have to expend any energy and you can get 3,000 calories in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, right?
Yeah,
we just completely hijacked our brains, essentially.
We totally have. Now, look, like my breakfast yesterday morning, because but it was 281 calories.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of protein. I literally had 50 grams of protein in the morning.
Yeah. If somebody was trying to drop weight and trying to control their caloric intake, I think that would be great. If you're eating that amount and like having trouble getting your calories in, I'd be like, all right, maybe we go closer to 40 grams of protein and then you're eating some sort of carbohydrate with that meal to increase.
Now, it was like I had my collagen in my coffee, but I still consider that's protein. Would you consider that?
I would, unless, let's say you're getting 110 grams of protein per day and 20 or 30 of that's from collagen. I personally would want to bring you up just a little bit more. reason.
Yeah, 1 scoop. So it's 10 grams. Let me see. It's 11 grams of protein in my collagen.
And you're eating what? How many grams of protein per day?
Yesterday I had 120 grams.
Okay. For what you're trying to do, like you're fine. Like I think you're fine. Now, again, if you're getting like 20 to 30 grams of collagen and you're getting 120 throughout the entire day, I'd be like, hey, I ideally probably want to see you bump that protein up to 150. Reason being,
Okay.
collagen's going to be great for like joints and
Yeah.
some research around that. But in terms of like from a body composition standpoint, like muscle building,
Yeah, because
it's not going to be good for that. So that would
because there's no aminos, correct, in collagen?
it doesn't have the full
Amino acid.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now my protein does, which I do a scoop of that in my coffee too.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love my protein powder. It's amazing. Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. But I literally eat vegetables, eggs, my kiwi, collagen, protein powder. So I do get a significant amount in the morning.
Of protein.
Yeah. And then in the afternoon, I always do that. What's that?
That's good. That would be a habit that, let's say we did get you to increase your calories. Like I would still have you keep that habit. It would just probably be adding in
Like
some sort of
peanut butter.
carbohydrate, peanut butter, some sort of carbohydrate, English muffin, things like that. Like whatever.
Sourdough bread.
Sourdough bread. Yeah. Something along those lines. Just get some carbs in.
I'll do that. Yeah. Or an Ezekiel. I use the Ezekiel bread. They have those English muffins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm an ingredient girl. Like I can't eat English muffins.
And hey, that would obviously be something we would take into consideration, right? If you were like, hey, I want Ezekiel bread or like something like, again, a high fiber type bread, you just have to weigh that out of, okay, maybe then we need to switch to a sweet potato or something like that.
Exactly. Which I do in the morning too sometimes because I need warm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think this was a really good conversation overall. I think it's better than the last one. Yeah. See, everything happens for a reason.
Exactly.
But where can people find you on Instagram? I know, but for them, and I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_. Most active there. If you have any questions on this podcast or anything, you can just reach out to me. And then my podcast, The Mind Muscle Connection. Those are the 2 places I am most active. And again, I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm glad we could make this work again. Hopefully the recording's good this time.
No, listen, if it's not, something's going on. No, we didn't get any notifications this time, so we should be good. I think it'll be good. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen that. It was crazy. Yeah. All right. This is great, guys. If you like this podcast, and please subscribe and share it with your friends. As the more people like it, it becomes more noticeable. And that way, these conversations can help a lot of people out with health and wellness, especially confusion along the way with all the things that we have on social media. So, Jeff, thank you again for coming. And we'll talk again soon, hopefully. Maybe we talk about some other stuff in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Love
You're welcome. Thank you.